I can't pick a single trail, but a single area would be Bighorn.
Yeah.
Bighorn Trail, and starting from not the very top, but from 9K mark, there's 3 down trails. There's Green Dragon, then Shiver Me Timbers, and then Blowdown. That's, if I could ride no other trails
Yeah.
for the rest of my life and only those 3, I would probably be pretty happy.
Welcome to the Wilderness Wavelength Podcast.
This is it, episode 104 of the Wilderness Wavelength Podcast. Welcome to it. I'm George, Scott Sunderwald, as always.
Great to be here. We got a special guest here tonight.
Oh man, I'm excited for this one. Glen Allen from Rocky Mountain Ride Guides, certified mountain bike instructor, specializing in the trail network in Hinton. Would you say you're a specialist?
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
You can find RockyMountainRideGuides.com or on Instagram. We were just talking before we turned the mics on too. So Glenn, you're like certified wilderness first aid instructor now too.
I am, yeah. That was one of those things, where you're guiding and you want your first aid to be sharp. Hopefully you never need it, but you want it there if you do. And then I started instructing standard first aid. That was mostly kind of a post-retirement thing. As I left the high school, I could go back and teach kids first aid. And then I sort of thought, well, geez, I may as well take this the next step into the wilderness first aid. And it's been, honestly, it's kind of selfish, but it's a super fun, it's a super fun program to teach and to take. And I think there's a demand for it around here. There's tons of outdoorsy people who like to get out and...
Yeah, I like it. Is the like, to get the teaching certification, is that a pretty in-depth process for you?
It's kind of a, I mean, you're obviously first certified at that level of the course itself.
Yeah.
And then there's it took me about, I mean, really, I suppose you could do it in a few months, but it was about a year between the time I started with the kind of the instructor side and the, skill tests and all that stuff. And then you do, ultimately you do a teaching practicum with a certified instructor.
Okay.
And so I got the guy who was one of my 2 instructors for the instructor's course. I did my practicum with him he's out of Turner Valley.
Cool.
So what gave you the desire to do that? Have you had to deal with quite a few accidents out there? You just have a
fortunately
interest?
No.
Yeah.
Fortunately, not too many accidents. Minor, like sort of scuffed knees.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, like one of the things I'd like to do this year. I've scouted it from the helicopter, and I scouted it on the bike last year. I'd like to do a helibike off of Folding Mountain south, which is an amazing ride, or hike or whatever you're doing. But it's also pretty out there, like relatively. You don't think about it as that far away, but you're potentially hours away from any help.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to take people out there, I'd better have my act together.
Yeah.
From a first aid perspective, that if something goes wrong, I can manage things.
Yeah.
So our listeners here, we get a lot of hunters, fishermen, backcountry folks. Make the case for them why this is better than a standard first aid course.
Well, that could be a long conversation, but here's a short couple of key points. I think the first thing, when people think about access to help, like advanced medical care, you can't think about it in distance. You might only be 5 Ks in, for example, from the trailhead, but that could be a really steep, could be really difficult 5 Ks. It could be 5 Ks in, but you have no cell coverage now. And if something goes wrong, like a deadly external bleed, or
jabbing a machete into your leg.
Yeah, some crazy people do stuff like that.
Like how are you going to manage that? And standard first aid is a great program, and I strongly recommend it for everybody. But it kind of touches on a lot of things and doesn't get into a lot of depth. If you're in backcountry, hours or longer away from help, there's a few things you should probably be able to be confident in doing under pressure to manage, like whatever it is. And I think the other part of remote and wilderness first aid that a lot of people don't think about when they think about first aid is the planning component and the leadership component of it. Sort of, I would say it's kind of at an introductory level, a kind of a guiding thing where you are looking at how are you managing the people you're with and ensuring that, nutrition and hydration and sleep and all those things are being looked after. And if they're not, how are you going to intervene to support those people?
Well, I noticed a trend. I've taken so many first aid courses through the years, and I feel like they used to teach us in standard first aid more hands-on stuff, and then I noticed a trend. It was more and more call 911, keep the person breathing and warm, and wait for help was kind of the default now. And I thought, man, there's so much more. And like you were saying, if you're back there, even just 5K, that's not going to suffice. You might be hours away from help, right? And then it's too late. So I think it's a fantastic course.
Yeah, it really is. And I think too, like I mentioned, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, do you know how to put a tourniquet on? Okay, great. But can you do that when everything's going nuts and there's some stress and some pressure? It's like,
yeah.
And is it the right thing to do at that time? Like, it might not be the right thing to do. So let's make sure we don't make a mistake where we're so far away from help that mistake could actually be really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also comforting when you're with a partner who's had that course. I always sigh a bit of relief. It's like, that's good.
It's got the wilderness. I'm covered. Yeah. Let's talk about getting back in there then, Glenn. So, what got you into mountain biking? How long have you been doing that for?
I've been in the bike industry for kind of in one way or another since I was about 20 years old.
Yeah.
I had always, as a kid, I grew up riding bikes, and my cousin kind of got me hooked on bikes maybe a bit more seriously. But then in my second year of university, maybe, I actually took a couple of years off, and I started working in a bike shop in Edmonton, and I was in.
Which one?
It doesn't exist anymore. It was called Two Wheel Resource.
Okay.
Which was owned by George's Cycle, and on White Ave, and it was a really good group of people, many of whom I'm still in touch with.
Yeah.
And that kind of opened the door for me. I was mostly a mechanic there, and then sort of stayed in the bike industry. When I came to Hinton in 1994, that was my first teaching year, and my following year I was sort of looking to do something in the summer, and one of my bike contacts said, there's this guy in Jasper who's looking for somebody to look after his rental bikes. So I looked after, helped Online Sport and Tackle's rental bike program for, 5 years. And then another one of my bike buddies got me hooked up with a bicycle touring company that was based out of California but did most of their trips in Europe.
Oh, wow.
So I worked in Europe in the summers for, 12 or 13
Cool.
years.
Whereabouts in Europe?
Mostly France.
Okay.
A little bit in Italy, and a little bit in Italy, some in France, basically. And then they did trips in California as well. So I think once or twice I was down in Napa for a tour down there. But the trips in Europe were awesome. We're in mostly the mountainous regions, but their big trip was also they would follow the Tour de France.
Yeah.
So you'd go out and ride part of the route that the racers were riding that day, or ride the final climb to watch the finish kind of thing. And
yeah. So you're working at that point with the whole spectrum of bikes, right? Not just the mountain biking scene.
That was road.
Yeah.
But then that kind of sparked an interest in me to guide, to run a bike business. And I'd always, like back in the bike shop days, that was when mountain bikes first sort of hit mass market, and I started racing, and so I'd ride kind of all kinds of bikes, but if I had to pick only one, it would probably still be the mountain bike. And so that's when I seriously looked at, okay, let's do this as
Yeah.
kind of a business. And it was a slam dunk. Mountain bike was the way to go. So
Well, we've seen you on these Northern Rockies tourism clips, these videos. So you're
Oh, yeah.
still riding walls and doing jumps and all that, hey?
yeah, you know what, it's funny, in the last probably 5 or 6 years, my riding has improved dramatically.
Okay.
I've pushed myself a lot. I mean, I was a good rider, and there are plenty of people who are better riders than me, but I don't think there are a lot who have improved as much as I have in the last, like, over, say, 5 years.
What was the keys to that? Just more riding, or?
Not so much more riding. I think it was more focused on skill development. So, like, if I wanted to, there was 2 big things I worked on. I worked on my jumps, sort of air time generally, and surprisingly, maybe to some, cornering. And then some instruction. You know, it's like you get a little bit of instruction, and then it's like, oh yeah, it goes a long ways.
Yeah.
And I imagine that's true for just about anything.
And how you balance the desire to push the limits, the adventure, the risk with staying safe? Do you feel like you're riding that line?
Generally speaking, I think I ride within my limits. I think there are occasions when I'm kind of hanging it out there a bit, but I'm a particularly now, because it's my business. I have to be able to, you know, I'm not necessarily coaching every day, but if I have a client on the weekend, they're going to be pissed if I've, you know, broken my arm doing something stupid. That, like, I think about one of the coaching instructors I had for mountain biking. I think about something he said all the time. We were in this course, and there was this technical feature that I didn't ride, actually. About half the guys rode it, and the one guy just a yard sail at the bottom of it. He wasn't hurt, but it just, like, all over the place. And the instructor asked him after, he said, well, when you were at the top of that thing, how sure were you that you were going to be able to do it? And he said, you know, 70% maybe. And it's like, and he didn't chastise him, I guess, to be fair, but he said, boy, he says, when I'm on top of something, he says, I'm 95%.
Yeah.
And that 5% isn't yard sail, it's I didn't ride it the way I wanted to ride it.
Yeah.
And that's really been a huge impact on the way I look at things and the way I ride, like what I'll ride. And it's, you know what? One day I'll ride something, and the next day I'll get up to the top of it and go, yeah, no, not feeling it today. It's not 95%.
Yeah.
It can wait. It's going to be here the next time I come.
And there's different grades, of course, for different trails. Do you find them to be pretty accurate, or are you always sort of guessing?
I think one of the things I have learned is it's partly by kind of accident and experience, and partly just sort of paying attention to how things are done. I think this is likely true for sort of skiing, snowboarding too, but it's certainly true for mountain biking. What most people will recognize as the green, the blue, and the black, and the double black designations are relative to the area that they are in. So, for example, a Whistler blue is probably a black in most other places. And so if you are kind of aware of that, and you're honest about sort of your assessment of your local trails and your ability versus where you are in this other strange place riding, then you're going to be okay. But I think back to years and years ago. I was actually that's before I came to Hinton. I went out to Whistler to do a mountain bike race, and I thought I was a pretty good rider. And it's like, oh yeah, I can ride the black stuff. Well, I could ride the black stuff in Edmonton, no problem. The black stuff in Whistler, on the other hand, was an entirely different level. You know, I had kind of had my eyes opened big time. So,
I don't know if you rock climb.
I used to rock climb.
You're built like you should be a good climber, so you probably have. But I used to climb a lot, and we talk about sandbagged, right? When routes were sandbagged, and Jasper was known, for our listeners, that basically means this should be rated a 5.11, but they rated it a 5.10 because nobody wants to be the guy that says it's a 5'11", and some guy comes from somewhere else, from California, and says, oh, that was a 5'9". You know, you weaklings here. So Jasper's known to be fairly sandbagged. So I'm just wondering if that ego thing might set in with some of that. Do you think it's ego or just different culture?
Well, there's probably some ego, but I do think, based on what I've sort of learned over the years, I do think that sort of riding areas tend to set the standard for that area. And is it ego? I don't know, but
yeah. And weather must play a big role too. Like, you do a black route in pouring rain. That's going to be very different than a nice sunny day.
Yeah, like I think
trail.
about, I haven't ridden very much in the sort of Vancouver area, but like North Shore of Vancouver, for example, is iconic. And, you know, there's really difficult trails, but then you throw in, particularly in the winter, you know, wet and slick conditions. It's like, okay, that's a whole nother level.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, totally weather would impact that.
I got a would you rather, weather-ish related. Okay, so would you rather have a flat tire in the pouring rain or have your handlebars slightly crooked for an entire weekend?
Handlebars slightly crooked for the entire weekend. I can adapt to that.
Yeah.
I would much rather not adapt to being wet and cold.
How about you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm going with the handlebars slightly off. How about you?
Man, I'll be contrary then. I'm going flat tire. I'll change in the rain. Speaking of that, though, what is, because I know you do a little bit of a trailside maintenance clinics too.
I do, yeah.
Can you like give us some tips? Like, what should people be taking with them when they're mountain biking?
The first thing
what do you take with you, I guess?
The first thing I would say is don't take anything with you that you don't know how to use, because it's just extra weight.
Yeah.
So, but I would say virtually everybody should have a small multi-tool, so your basic Allen keys, ideally a chain breaker on it. You don't have to deal with that very often, but it's one of those things when you do, that's really, practically speaking, the only way you're going to get fixed and be able to ride home rather than walk. And regardless of whether you're running a tubeless or tubeless tires or tubes, have a spare tube that's the appropriate size, and then a pump.
And do you do courses on bike repair then?
I do. I do trailside maintenance course. So it's like, you know, how to get home when you flat or you break a chain, like that kind of sort of trailside stuff, as opposed to the regular routine maintenance stuff.
Yeah. So as far as accidents that you've seen, what are the typical accidents that people have? Like, I know my boys were big into mountain biking, and there was the odd concussion and collarbone broken. Is that pretty normal, or what?
Well, collarbones for sure. That's a pretty common mountain bike injury, because of anytime you're coming off in a hurry, there's a good chance that a collarbone is going to get in the way. But I think the other thing that you see is lots of just not serious things, but lots of little like cuts and gashes. If you're riding flat pedals, you can really tear up a shin or worse, which is usually pretty messy, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I haven't seen a lot of really bad injuries when I've been riding. Touch wood. But yeah, you see it, and occasionally, it's funny, dislocated fingers.
Okay.
I think just, you know, like you're grabbing, and as your hand's coming off the bar or whatever, and it's sort of your fingers now hanging out there and dragged along the ground, and things get yanked out of place.
Have you had any bad wrecks?
Not really. I've had a couple of hard slams. One was on a wet bridge that I just wasn't paying attention on, but otherwise, for the most part, no. Again, I I really go back to that. I mean, accidents will happen. It'll always happen. But you can eliminate a lot of it by just making good decisions about, is today the day you're going to ride this section? Maybe not today.
Yeah.
Stay in your ability, be true to yourself.
Yeah, you can be honest. Like I mean, I'm old and I don't have a lot to prove really. So I can usually ignore my ego when my ego says, "Oh no, you can do it." And
Yeah.
if I'm not feeling it, I can usually tell my ego to just stuff it, and I'll do the ride around.
So you're doing you're doing coaching. Who is like your main clientele? Is it people are just like trying to get into biking, or?
I kind of would have, there's two groups. I have my kids camps that I do in the beginning of July and kind of the end of August. And so those are 6 to sort of 13 or 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Different groups, but and then my other kind of major or primary demographic is, I would say probably that 30 to 50-year-old range, where it's like, okay, I really love mountain biking, but I want to get better, either generally better, or the other thing I'm finding more and more now is I want to get better at jumps and drops.
Really, eh?
People want to get their wheels off the ground.
Yeah.
Which is super fun, and it opens up a ton of different riding opportunities.
So when you're coaching, someone's like, they want to do some jumps, or you kind of like, this jump might work for you, this one too big, or how does?
Well, the first thing is there's a few kind of what would be the like sort of prerequisite skills. There's a thing called a front wheel lift, which is exactly like it sounds, but the technique involved for it is about timing. It's not about really, even if the wheel only comes like an inch off the ground, that's mission accomplished. It's, did you do it right? So there's that sort of, do you have some control over the bike? And then the second thing is there's related to that front wheel lift, there's, can you time this so that you get that wheel up at that stick on the flat ground and keep it up until your rear wheel crosses that stick. It's like, have you got that timing down? Okay, now we can talk about actually
Let's go to the next
getting
level.
on a jump. I mean, this is obviously for a beginner who is just learning jumping, but I think one of the things about when people go to get wheels off the ground, whether it's jumps or drops, but particularly with jumps, there's a lot of less than ideal information out there on like YouTube, and it's like, people who figured out how it works for them, and I'm not going to criticize what works for somebody, but particularly when you're teaching somebody, it's like there's some right and wrong ways that we can do this. And when you get comfortable in the air, you want to experiment and you want to do things differently, knock yourself out.
Yeah.
But let's not knock yourself out when we're learning, because that's just a bad experience.
I like it. I'm in that range where I'm like 30s, like biked a little bit when I was a kid, nothing now. Buddy gave me a bike 2 years ago, and last year I'm like, I'm gonna go biking, and I just haven't yet. So I feel like this is the summer where I get out there and do it. Hinton's got the trails.
We are
the park.
So lucky.
Yeah.
I've had clients I've taken out for rides, who even clients from Jasper actually, and their jaw drops. It's like, okay, well, A, the trails are awesome, and B, it's like our own private little trail.
Yeah.
Maybe we see a couple of other riders on any given day. And yeah, we're so fortunate here.
It's quite the variety, hey, with the Bighorn now and
Bighorn
the bike park
and the bike park, and then Happy Creek, and Jack's network is going to be up and running again this year. It's been, in particular, well, the bike club, Hinton Mountain Bike Association, but in particular, Hal Jackson, the president, has put a ton of work into rehabbing that, and we've got some new bridges in there. There's a bunch of new boardwalk, and it's a super fun network. It's very sort of cross-country-ish, like it's pretty accessible to virtually anybody who mountain bikes. And
are you seeing more and more people from outside of Hinton area, Edmonton?
Edmonton and like the surrounding areas, like they're it's free access mountain bike park, and we have, as you said, Scott, we have a huge variety of trails, and there's stuff for pretty accessible, like really virtually anybody on a mountain bike can ride it, to some pretty gnarly, challenging trails for the people who can ride that, and for the most part it's relatively close. You're not driving a lot to get to those places, so it's
You got a favorite trail?
Not really. It depends a lot on the day.
Okay.
If it's I love riding Bighorn. I suppose probably if I had to pick a single, I can't pick a single trail, but a single area, it'd be Bighorn.
Yeah.
Bighorn Trail, and starting from not the very top, but from 9K mark, there's 3 down trails. There's Green Dragon, then Shiver Me Timbers, and then Blowdown. That's, if I could ride no other trails for the rest of my life and only those 3, I would probably be pretty happy.
I got my goal this summer is to start from here, before I get the wife to bring the holiday trailer, but would go to the Greg River cabin there and bike from town to there. Have you done that run before?
I guess I have, actually, because you can take the Bighorn Trail, Bighorn Ridge, was extended from the original top of Stairway to Heaven to the south, basically to Scott, is that Cold Creek Road?
Cold Creek Road, right next to the river there.
And so and actually the original Bighorn Trail continues it's a K or 2 to the Greg cabin.
Sweet.
But it at the moment that section of trail hasn't been rebuilt because it's a bit of a mess in there. But
It's more of hiking. I've hiked it. I've never tried biking it.
You can.
Well, in a bit of history, they say the original Bighorn went from Calgary all the way up here. It was an old pack horse trail.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah, and in fact, some people claim it was an old indigenous trail that went all the way from Mexico to Alaska.
Oh, jeez.
So, I mean, let's be honest, the indigenous people
hiked
right across this whole continent, so it could well be, sort of the spine of the land there.
Definitely. That's the obvious travel route. Yeah. In a lot of that area, anyways.
But I do know it was an old pack horse trail for a long, long time. So a lot of history there. Yeah.
You got a favorite bike you use, Glenn?
I have 2. Well, I have 2 mountain bikes. I'm a Norco guy. Yeah. Unsolicited plug for Norco, but I'm a big Norco fan. But I have the one bike is called Revolver. It's more of a cross-country bike. So if I'm just going out for an easy, not necessarily easy, but no jumps sort of spin, I'll often ride that bike. It's lighter and faster. But if I'm doing anything kind of burly, I have a bigger, when I say bigger, I mean more suspension, longer travel bike called Norco Sight that I ride. And that's kind of if I had to pick one bike, it would be my Norco Sight. It's a little bit heavier, but it can ride anything that I want to ride, it can do. So.
Mm-hmm. Back to gear, do you recommend carrying bear spray on your bike? I've had friends who've run into both grizzlies and mountain lions, black bear, of course, back there.
Yeah, I generally, certainly when I'm guiding, when I'm with clients, I will always have bear spray. When I'm by myself, sometimes I don't, but I also consider where I'm going. If I'm going on, like, for example, Happy Creek, not that you can't run into bears there, but it's well traveled. You're less likely to be kind of out there on your own, but so I might not take it.
Yeah, a friend of mine did run into a grizz on Happy Creek, but it's just, you never know, right? Yeah, there's that gnarly video from Jasper with the guy who sees the grizzly. That one got quite world famous, actually, and he's just pedaling away and the grizz is charging behind him.
I have a would you rather based on that. Okay. You got a grizzly would you rather in this episode, Scott?
I don't.
What?
You go for it.
Oh my God. Okay, so you come around a corner. Would you rather end up face to face with a grizzly or bike through a patch of stinging nettles?
Oh, well, that's a good one. I have come across grizzly. I've never had a bad experience with a grizzly.
Yeah.
I've had very few, to be fair, but the few that I've had have not been really scary.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the face-to-face with a grizzly over
Okay.
the stinging nettles, which
Yeah.
is probably not going to be popular with those who love me, but
What are you going, Scott?
Oh, I'm taking the stinging nettles. I've had lots of stinging nettles in my life, and you burn for a while. Now, if it was poison ivy, that is nasty stuff. I'll take the grizz probably.
Stinging nettles, actually, while we're on that, is there, not to put you on the spot, but is there like a...
Please do.
Yeah. Some kind of like herb or something you would find in the bush to be like, this will take care of this?
Yeah, you can use dock is a common one. Big dock leaves. You see them growing in kind of swampy areas.
All right.
You can also use pineapple weed and yarrow are good for stings. You can make a spit poultice or a wash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The wife's all over the yarrow. She saw like in one of your videos, you were like
Oh man, I swear
using
by
the
it.
yarrow and was like, oh yeah, that
Yeah,
could
yeah.
be the stuff.
I've tested it with some pretty nasty infected wounds, and it
Yeah.
does a trick.
I think we're adding a jar of it to our camping
Right
stash
on.
this year.
Yeah. What would you say is the hardest lesson to teach beginners who are learning to ride a bike up back there?
I think that, although I think I'm trying to teach beginners this, I probably don't actually, I'm not very explicit with it deliberately, but I think the hardest thing for beginners to get their heads around is that it's okay if the bike is doing one thing below you and you're doing something different above it.
Okay.
If you create that separation between your body and the bike, if the bike gets pitched a little bit, then your body is not also going that way, which ultimately is going to result in a crash, or often in a crash. Whereas if,
Yeah, that makes
you
sense.
separate the bike and the body,
Yeah.
ultimately you will be a way better rider and way less likely to crash.
Right. And don't freak out about it. Yeah.
Were you ever into biking, Scott? You said
Yeah.
your kids were.
Yeah, I mean, I can mountain bike. I'd hesitate to say I'm a mountain biker, and sitting here with Glen, that would be a big lie. But no, I can jump on a bike and go for it.
Yeah.
I went on an e-bike for the first time on some mountain bike trails in Cypress Hills a few months ago, and that was a whole different
Yeah.
experience. Just the torque took me by surprise, because you get in a bend there, and suddenly the bike just takes off on you, and if you're not ready for it, it can really throw you.
Are you getting into the e-bikes?
On a very sort of limited basis, and I want to be clear. One of the things, anybody who's listening to this, oh my God, stop apologizing for riding an e-bike. Like, it is the best thing ever. I don't care. I don't care who you are. I don't care why you're riding an e-bike. If you're out riding,
Yeah.
everybody on a bike benefits. And whether it's just because you want to be able to ride further in the same amount of time, or because it allows you to ride when you otherwise wouldn't be, I don't care. Just get out and ride.
Get out and do it.
And I think that the e-bikes, particularly around here, and specifically the Bighorn, that's a great place for an e-bike because you can't shuttle it. So, and it's particularly after about kilometer 7, not that it's an easy climb to that point, but it gets pretty nasty for a while. And most people are just like, yeah, no, there's just no way I'm climbing that. But on an e-bike, it's like, okay, they can climb that, and they could potentially ride a couple of other trails that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. And it's like, that's awesome. So
I think that's very true. The little bit that I've ridden that e-bike, I noticed that I'll get just as good a workout because I'm just out there longer and doing more trails. But by the time you park it, you've just done 4 times as much as you would have with a
but
regular pedal.
like if you look at, however you want to judge your sort of exertion with heart rate or, power or whatever, you can put out the same amount on an e-bike. It just means you're going to go a lot farther than you would on a regular bike. And it's like,
yeah.
That is a good point. I feel like e-bikes do get a bit of a bad rap too. People, oh, you're riding an e-bike, like, I can't pedal. It's like, yeah, you're getting out there. I mean, that's I like it. That's a good good way to look at that.
Yeah. We like to talk a lot about close calls on this show, so we got to dive into that. And it could be biking, rock climbing. You're an outdoors guy. Do you have any close calls, storms, wildlife, hypothermia, heat stroke?
I've actually, probably the worst one was a race scenario. I did this, this is years ago. It was a stage race in Canmore, and on the final day was a long cross country race, and I lost track of my nutrition, and I remember coming down this long, it was fairly straight, pretty open, to be fair, descent, but I was closing my eyes going, oh, I just need a second to relax. And I was like, okay, that's not good. And I fortunately, I had the good sense at sort of the bottom to stop and go, okay, yeah, this is stupid. And there was a shortcut back to the stadium, and it's like, yeah, I checked in and said, yeah, I'm out. So, I mean, that's not particularly scary, but in terms of riding, that was certainly, that still stands out in my mind though. It was a long time ago. But I think it's one of those things where, I think a lot of close calls are related to a bunch of bad, small decisions, as opposed to one big one. And so I think, like that one, it's like, okay, it's a bunch of small bad decisions that, I probably didn't go to bed early enough. I didn't eat well enough. I didn't hydrate well enough. And it's like any one of those things I probably would have been able to manage, but and so I think about that a lot, like when we go back to that initial conversation about like wilderness first aid, and the idea that you're also thinking about managing yourself and those who are with you. Those are the sorts of things I think about when, the close calls that I've had. Another one, I guess, would be just a mountain bike ride out at the Overlander years ago we lived out there, and my dog, and there was a sow black bear who'd been around for several seasons with her cubs, and my dog was running in the bush beside the trail. And I heard him get into something, and I just thought it was squirrels or something, and then Mom came out. And we were like, for those of you who are listening, we're about 1.5 meters apart, the three of us. That was the triangle that my dog, myself, and the bear made. And, she was drooling, and she was really unhappy with both of us. And I think the only thing that saved us is that she couldn't take both of us at once.
Right.
And she was relatively mature, and I managed to get a hold of my dog and back off, and she backed off, but that scared the bejesus out of me for sure.
Bad day.
So
that is scary. You mentioned nutrition, and that, like, I'm trying to get into running and stuff, so I'm always trying to take advice for nutrition. Do you have like some kind of nutrition stuff you work with?
I think that, I'm going to give you kind of generic advice, but I think is really good advice. Try lots of different things. Like, I see you got honey stingers on the counter here.
I just bought those this weekend. Yeah, that's my new thing. Try it out.
Try it, and try it when your body is stressed a little bit.
Yeah.
But in a low consequence scenario.
Yeah.
So your body knows sort of what you're going to do. I had one of the best pieces of advice I ever had was I was training. I didn't often use a coach to train for races, but I was training for this race in Kamloops, and it was I can't remember if it was 5 or 7 day stage race. It was in the summer. I was worried about the heat, and my coach, Ken Reese, who was in Hinton for a while, and I think they're going to be moving back here, but anyways, he said, he kind of gave me the advice that I just said, but he said, like, do anything you want so long as you have tried it in similar situations. And so that race that I did in Kamloops, it was I can't remember, 9 or 12 of the hottest days, one after the other in the history at that point. I mean, we were starting at 9 o'clock and it was 32 degrees. Yeah. But I was good. And I attribute that, as opposed to the other race I mentioned, was, I mean, yeah, I was fit, but mostly I stayed on top of nutrition and hydration over the course of that. And when it's, those extreme conditions, hot or cold, it's like, man, oh man, it's so much more important to keep track of things.
That ties into a would you rather I've got. So would you rather ride in extreme heat or cold, freezing rain?
Extreme heat.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think maybe partly just because I've been there and I feel like I could probably manage it better.
Yeah.
And as a small guy, I can manage heat way better than cold.
You just stop and seek shade, or what are you doing?
Well, it depends on the context, but if I got lots of water, I'll slow down. I mean, I don't want to be redlining at, if it's 40 degrees out, but if you're hydrating, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, George?
Well, extreme heat, but I'll go the opposite. I'm going to go faster just to get more of that breeze. I feel like I shut down more in the cold too, and then I'm just like, I'd go heat. Yeah. What are you going with?
I think so too. And a part of me wonders, because we live here in the Northern Rockies, like extreme heat in Arizona is very different than here. But I always say, when I've taught survival programs in the Canadian North, you can almost always cool down, but you can't always warm up. That's a general. I know that's very generalized, but that seems to be what I've seen. More people are in danger dying of exposure hypothermia than they will be of heat exhaustion, because usually you can just stop, seek shade, get a little hydration.
I think that's true. I think even in a worst case scenario, heat scenario, at least you can stop.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some relief from that, whereas in the cold, when it starts to go, you're kind of hooped.
Yeah, it can be bad.
You got any races lined up? You still racing?
No. I mean, occasionally I'll do a kind of a fun race. Like I do the fat bike race here and stuff like that. But I don't consider myself a racer anymore. But
Any biking like bucket trips right now? Like anything on the list that you were like, oh, I can't wait to go biking there?
No, I wouldn't say anything specific.
No.
There's lots of places I would like to go ride, but I like to ride. I think as far as riding goes, I'm a super easy guy to please.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's a trail. Let's
take me on a fun trail that I've never been on before. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Have you gone to Moab?
I haven't been to Moab. I've ridden in Sedona.
Okay.
Which is not the same, but it's
What's
similar.
Moab again? Arizona?
Utah.
Yeah, I just hear really good things about it, especially from a trail design where they seem to have really worked well with identifying this is an OHV trail, this is a mountain bike trail, etc., equestrian, and people are abiding by the rules. Can you believe it? Because you must have had conflicts here where you're ripping down a mountain bike trail and the quad comes tearing up.
I have had some conflicts, but I've had surprisingly few. And I would say really no really bad ones. I've had some where, I've run into a guy on a quad who was not on a trail. He knew for sure that he shouldn't have been on it, but he played dumb, and it's like, whatever, but just get off the trail. I mean, that's sort of the worst that I've had. I think though that's something as we look forward, in the coming years in our era, we're going to have to pay a bit more attention to, because as more people come and who are not going into the park, for example, they're going to stay around Hinton area. Our trails are going to get more, I was going to say congested. That's probably not fair, but busier. And as soon as trails get busier, there's going to be a higher level of conflict. And conflict isn't always necessarily really terrible, but we want to avoid it if we can. So
Yeah.
And you offer like customizable trail rides too. Hey, like if someone says, "Hey, I want to."
Yeah, I do. Like what I found when I first started the company, I kind of had it in my head that I was gonna be busy every weekend with a guided trip for six riding buddies from the city or whatever.
Yeah.
And what became pretty obvious, and what has happened is that I do guided trips, but they are typically, one or two, maybe three people who they want to go for a great ride. They don't want to think about, do I take this trail or do I take that trail? It's like, okay, Glenn, here's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, here's where we're going to go. We're going to go ride the Bighorn or, whatever it is. And they can enjoy the ride, and they know that they're going to get back to the trailhead at sort of the discussed time. And
yeah, cool. If someone's listening to this, like say someone's in Edmonton, doesn't have a bike and they want to come out and do it, can you help facilitate that, or how does that work?
Well, certainly I can help facilitate it, but their Vicious Cycle here in Hinton rents bikes.
Shout out to Colton.
Yeah, and then there's obviously shops in the city that rent bikes. So if somebody wants to rent a bike there, I'm sure they can rent a bike rack if they need one, and I can definitely help with that.
Cool.
Kind of a question for you, kind of balancing again that wilderness first aid and the mountain bike experience. There's got to be tricky situations on a rescue where people are debating, do I do a self-evacuation or do I wait for help? Can you kind of talk us through what you would recommend in those situations and how you would walk that line?
That's a great question, because that's something I didn't mention, that's another one of the components of particularly the wilderness first aid, but the remote first aid as well, where you look at identifying, is this minor, major, or critical? So an example might be like if somebody, maybe not a biking trip, but let's say a hiking trip, somebody falls and breaks a collarbone. Okay, well your trip is over, but you can probably walk out.
Sure.
So really that's a self-evacuation, although a pretty basic level. Whereas kind of an extreme scenario, if you're doing a backcountry ski or maybe a fat bike adventure or something like that, and somebody becomes severely hypothermic, you're not evacuating them. The body in that severe hypothermic state, the organs in the body is too fragile to be bumped around, and maybe or maybe not we get them out in one sort of alive. So we're going to hunker down, and maybe we're going to have to send two people out to get help, but we're not evacuating that person. And so then one of the things that we talk about in remote and wilderness first aid is all those tons of different scenarios. Is it minor, major, or critical? And does that end the trip, or can we deal with this and they can carry on? And then if it ends the trip, are we going to evacuate, or are we going to call in professional rescue? So it's one of those things that we spend a lot of time talking about, so that you recognize that. And again, this comes back to that initial conversation where, do you have the confidence to make that decision? It's like, we're done. We're done. We're not hiking or biking out.
Yeah.
We're hitting the SOS button on our Zoleo or our Garmin or whatever, and getting serious help.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's all good. So on that note, talking about gear, are you taking a Zoleo in reach? Do you have a knife and lighter, space blanket? I'm sure a first aid kit. Like what is that sort of survival first aid gear? Because you're going pretty light, right? You don't want to be having this heavy pack.
It's interesting. I find, and particularly even with my instructor for wilderness first aid, he's a he's a backpacker, scout leader, and so he's walking in and can carry relatively comfortably a lot more gear than I can carry comfortably on a bike if I'm guiding, particularly on a more technical trail. So I always have an emergency blanket. I always have a SAM splint. In fact, my SAM splint, little tip for anybody out there, hunter, hiker, whatever, if you're carrying a pack, slide a SAM splint in the back of the pack. You're going to forget about it until you need it. And
what's a SAM splint again?
SAM is an acronym for sandwich. What is it? Anyways, it's a thin piece of aluminum sandwich between two foam kind of pads.
Yeah.
And so you can form it and cup it to support like a brake or even a sprain, I suppose. But and you can use them for man, that's a rabbit hole of how can you use a SAM splint?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
1,000 different ways.
So, but anyways, a SAM splint in there for sure. I always have something. I mean, I always have a lighter for sure. But if I'm going really far back, I'll have some sort of redundant fire starting thing. And then the first aid kit. In my first aid kit, but also in my bike, I have a wrap of duct tape around my pump, for example. I carry most of the time, certainly when I'm guiding, and most of the time, I would say 95% of the time on a ride, I carry a little, well, it's not that little, it's 240 mil silky saw.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a guy, actually, I just recently got a new saw. It's my latest and greatest favorite thing. There's a guy out of Toronto, I think. He's an ultralight hiker, and he's an engineer. Suluk, I believe.
Okay.
Suluk. And he makes all sorts of things like ultralight, some basic things like tent pegs and stuff, but he makes the handle for the silky saw blades. It's stupid light. And for me on a bike, it's like I would have carried the thing anyways, but now it weighs probably half of the regular silky saw.
Yeah.
And that's for as much like sort of trail maintenance, like, oh hey, there's a tree down on this sort of nasty section of trail that you're not necessarily going to see.
Yeah.
So I can clean that up, but also in back to that sort of evac scenario, if you're considering evac, one of those considerations might be some sort of rope stretcher.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that saw is going to help you do it. The flip side of that, if you're going to have to hunker down, you can go a long ways with that saw, getting yourself some kind of shelter.
Oh, yeah.
And firewood, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things are amazing. And a knife. You carry a knife.
And I carry a knife. I actually carry a Leatherman with a bunch of odds and ends on it. So
yeah, that sounds good. We're gonna throw the question we throw at a lot of people. You're lost in the bush. You got your clothes on your back. Would you rather be lost with a knife or a lighter?
Knife or a lighter.
Yeah. Knife or a lighter.
Well,
there's no right or wrong answer.
I think there's lots of sort of, what ifs, but I think I would take the lighter because I'm pretty confident I could get it with the lighter. I could get a fire going, and I could probably manage without the knife.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
What was your answer to that one?
Yeah, part of it is, are we talking minus 30 in January or a hot summer day in July, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can make a bow drill fire pretty readily. So if I have a bootlace, I can make fire. But if it's pouring rain, give me the lighter. And how far, am I in the Wilmore on the BC border, like a month away from rescue? That's a different scenario than, 2 days out, right? So there's a lot of what ifs, but it's a fun one to toss around in your mind.
That's a good one, actually, because
because you can almost always find a sharp rock, like a good chunk of quartzite. You crack that, and you got a sharp edge.
There's your new Leatherman.
You can gut a fish if you have to with that, you know.
Yeah.
I've even skinned a deer with a rock before, so it can be done.
I like it. Anything else you wanted to add to this one, Scott?
No, this has been really, really good. I like the blend that you've got between the mountain biking and the wilderness first aid,
it's a good
because I think it's a perfect combo.
Yeah.
Because you're not just there for the adventure, you're there for the safe ride and the safe return of your clients and yourself, and even hearing you talk through your own adventures. You're a safety conscious guy, or you would have all sorts of broken bones and scars by now, you know?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I'm a big fan of being able to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Live for another day.
So like make a good decision today so you can do it again tomorrow. And
yeah.
That's a good way to look at it. RockyMountainRideGuides.com. You mentioned, so you got summer kids camps coming up July, August. Any other events or anything that
I've got in May, any of my riding stuff starts. So in May, I've got on Monday nights a beginner mountain bike course. So if you're just getting into riding and looking to sort of get some basics down, Monday nights for 2 hours for 4 weeks.
Sweet.
We're going to do that. And then in June, that becomes an intermediate level course. So that's getting into some more technical stuff. Not really wheels off the ground with jumps and drops, maybe a bit of an intro to drops and jumps, but depending upon where people are at. And then I'm also in May and June on weekends, I've got what I call intermediate plus clinics. So 3-hour clinics on 6 different things. So intro to drops, and advanced drops, intro to jumps and advanced jumps, and then cornering and technical riding. So what's technical kind of generally is like if it's steep, up or down, rocky, rooty, that would be technical riding.
Yeah. Lots of that in our trail system. So yeah.
Tons, yeah.
Cool. Best way to get hold of you through Instagram or through the website, or
Instagram, Facebook, website. That all my contact information is there, so
perfect.
People can.
Cool. Well, thanks for doing this, Glenn. We really appreciate it. I like the insight.
Thanks, guys. George, Scott, this is super fun conversation.
Yeah, it's a cool company. Best of luck to you with your endeavors here. I think it's a great thing.
Good location for it. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Scott, your book, #1 bestseller on Amazon. Somehow I
don't know how that happened.
Just blowing up, man. It's
Radically Wild.
Yeah.
If you want a good read, it's interesting. I didn't set it out to be a book read to kids, but I'm getting a lot of emails from folks who are reading it to their kids.
Yeah. He likes it. He's like, we were reading some of the frog stories from Germany there and everything. Like he's into it.
Oh,
so
good.
Yeah. We should mention too, in like 2 weeks. 2 weeks we're doing a question episode.
Right.
So we'll post it up on social media, but send in your questions. We got a couple guests that should be fun ones.
We got 2 fun guests, Kyle and Robbie. It's going to be a riot. We want all the hard questions. Wilderness.
Yeah.
Could be rock climbing, hunting, fishing, mountain biking, skiing.
Yeah. Would you rathers, if you got some of those.
Would you rathers. Yeah.
We're thinking we're going to put all the questions in a hat or something. And
put them in a hat, draw them out, and put us in the hot seat. We'll see what we can do.
wildernesswavelength.ca for that. Leave us a review too, because it's great to see all these listeners coming in. It's been awesome. Glenn, thanks so much.
Yeah,
Scott, we'll talk to you next week. And
sounds good.
Till then, stay wild.
Wilderness Wavelength.